First and foremost, thank you so much, Congressman Andy Biggs, for joining the Sarah Carter Show. It's, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, but I feel like I feel like I'm living in upside down land. And I know you and I were both just talking about this, what's happening in our country, the protests, we're seeing these pro-abortion activists, our border, our national security is at risk, the way the White House is handling, I think, the most significant issues of our time by not handling them, just allowing it to all fall apart. Do you feel like we're living in a world that is completely an alterverse of where we were just a few years ago?
100%. I mean, so you see some of the protesters and you feel like you've stepped into the bar scene of Star Wars, for Pete's sakes.
Right.
You feel like you've walked down Diagon Alley in Harry Potter world or whatever. These people, they have no sense of reality. I mean, so here's the deal. I mean, the Democrats say, hey, well, we got inflation. We've devalued our currency. We've got inflation. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to print even more money and put more money there. They whatever they say is going to solve a problem is 100% going to exacerbate the problem. So I heard you talking earlier about Afghanistan. I've been watching this notion. We gave the Taliban $80 billion or so worth of material. And the Taliban basically is going back and they're taking modern implements of warfare and supply and logistics, and they're going to apply them to a medieval society that they're creating. I mean, this full body burqa that I've been watching in the news, I think, what in the world is happening there? What is going on anywhere? Whether it's North Korea lobbing ICBM after ICBM over Japan to see what Tokyo is going to do in response, and the South Korean president is for basically trying to reunify. This guy's a Marxist, and he wants to reunify with North Korea, the land that basically doesn't even have electricity. I mean, this is the idiocy that we see from Marxist left-wing authoritarians. And all by the way, all Marxist leftists are authoritarian. Doesn't matter whether they're selling apples in New York City or anything. They want to control you.
That's absolutely right. And I feel as though, there is this abuse taking place. And, everybody started using the word like gaslight before. Remember, it's gaslighting. But if you really read about gaslighting, I mean, it's abusive. And that's what the left is doing. They're just consistently lying to the public, consistently lying about what's happening around the world, and then acting like we're crazy if we question them. Like if we say, wait a minute, you're printing more money to take care of inflation? Like, that's crazy. It's like, we're going into a recession now. That's what everyone's seeing. And they're like, oh, no, you're just imagining that. You're just imagining this. Let us take care of this for you. Or watching the crazies, march down the street. I mean, I literally felt like we needed to get like therapists out there during the march, because some of the women there were, I can't even say it was suicidal. I was talking about it earlier in the monologue, Congressman. Some of the women marching in front of Justice Alito's house in their neighborhood, where neighbors are coming out, were saying that they wish that their mothers had aborted them, that they didn't want to live, that if abortion had been around, that they would have saved them the last 50-something years of their life. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And there is no way that I'm going to accept this as normal, because it is not.
It's not normal. It really isn't normal. And it's not mental illness. In my opinion, it's evil. And it's this, it's this embracing of this godless society that the secular left has just basically indoctrinated generation. And actually, we're probably in the second or third generation of this kind of weird indoctrination that way. And I mean, I want you to think about what you were just saying, what these people were saying. When you hear that, you just go, wow, well, how could you get so far off base on the meaning of life, this meaning of trying to help each person fulfill the measure of creation that God gave them? It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, and it's everything, sir. So you talk about abortion, life issue, the economy. We've talked about foreign policy. We're so upside down crazy. What is the foreign policy for this administration? Is it just we're voting today? They haven't even finished writing the bill as I'm talking to you, and in a couple hours we're going to vote on $40 billion more to Ukraine. It's like, well, wait a second. 2 years ago we said Ukraine's the most corrupt country in the world, and now we're going to give them $40 billion. Where's the $40 billion coming from? What's it going to do? And what is the end game, end goal? What is it? No one knows.
No one knows. No one knows. And it moves so fast that we can't even question it, that we don't even have time to think about it as taxpayers, as citizens. Like, where's this money going? How are we going to handle this? And you're absolutely right. Several years ago, all it was how corrupt Ukraine is. The most corrupt nation in the world, the most corrupt. And look, granted, Russia took action against Ukraine. It's not the Ukrainians in Russia. It's the Russians in Ukraine. I get that. You get that. We feel terrible for the people of Ukraine. I'm sure this is a horrific situation, but a situation that was brought about by an administration that basically gave the go-ahead to our enemies to do carte blanche, whatever they want around the world. That's our foreign policy. Our foreign policy is like, oh, hey, Russia, hey, China, you could pretty much do whatever you want because we're really not going to stop you. And I don't even know what this $40 billion is going to do when it reaches Ukraine. I'm in agreement with you. I don't even know what, we don't even understand how, we don't even have any checks and balances on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no accountability. We don't have a pay for it. We don't say, well, we're going to pay for it by doing X and Y. We're giving them Stingers and Javelin missiles, not out of our surplus, but out of our stockpile. It takes almost 3 years to make a single missile like that. And so we're decreasing our readiness, supplying Ukraine, and at $1 million a copy, at least. And so you just go, well, what is the end game? I mean, we're dealing with people who would like to sit around an academic salon at a university and just gab about, multilateral institutionalism, neoliberal institutionalism, that's the way to do it. But the rest of the world's dictators, they think in the terms of realism, and the term of realism is power. It's all about power. And they say, well, hey, you know what? Hey, we just got to break the crazy cowboy Donald Trump. He's not in charge anymore, so we can just You got this guy who's a lame-o from some Jerry Lewis movie, Joe Biden, who's wandering around. He's looking for an ice cream sandwich on the White House lawn. The Easter Bunny's his chief communications director. Whatever. They can do what they want because we don't even project strength anymore.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Look, I was thinking about this when you were talking about Afghanistan, and it kind of slipped my mind, and it came back into my mind while you were talking here. The fact that I spent a lot of time in Afghanistan, many, many years covering the war there. I would go into villages. I wasn't just with our U.S. military forces, which were amazing men and women in the region that some of them gave their full life. Others gave their eyes, like my husband, or an arm or a leg. They were fighting the fight there. But I would go into the villages and I would see mothers in those villages that would do anything and everything to save their child in the poorest place on earth with nothing. You would think with no hope because they were being abused by Taliban leaders, not having enough rights, whatever you want to say. The women there, but there were women that loved their children so much that they would sacrifice their own life for their child, even in poverty. So when I hear these arguments coming from here, it blows my mind because I've been to countries all over the world where mothers have walked across deserts to get their kids food. It's almost as if we're living in upside down land. And when you just talked about our national security and our foreign policy, and you see what's happening in China, you see what's happening in North Korea, you see what's happening in Japan and Taiwan, the world is literally upside down and we have no leadership in this country. Nobody is facing the reality that in the next few years, things could be far worse for us here because what is happening over there. And it almost feels that the administration is moving it in that direction at full speed.
Yeah, you're so right on this. So I think there's so much that comes into what you're talking about. So we're looking at food food security. And a lot of people say, "Oh, food security that's a family individual issue." It's actually going to be a U.S. issue because the price of fertilizer is going up, and we don't produce fertilizer in this country like we used to. We can't get it from Canada like we used to. This administration, they want to move you to green energy, right? So this energy vehicles, go buy, if you can't afford the gas, go buy an electric car, that type of thing. The reality is so different than that. What the reality is, you have people in charge who are actively working against the American people. They're actively working. I mean, whether it's the border, you and I get down to the border a lot. We talk about a lot of border issues. Now, you go down to the border, this is an administration where the Homeland Security Secretary knows that he's letting murderers, rapists, child molesters go into the interior. He knows that's happening, but he's going to do nothing but open the doors even further, eliminate Title 42. Mayorkas wants to still eliminate Title 42. So you got that happening. At the same time, you can't even mine critical minerals that are necessary to build an electric vehicle out of American minerals. You have to bring them from China. Where are they getting them? China's taking some of them from Afghanistan. So
exactly,
I mean, it's crazy.
It is crazy. You're a lawyer. Tell me what goes through your mind when you see what's happening with the SCOTUS and that leak. We've never seen anything like that before, have we? We've never seen anything in the history of the SCOTUS like that.
The only time that you saw anything like that was on the first Roe v. Wade, where you remember People magazine, the opinion was supposed to be released. People magazine got a hold of it and released it, and for some reason there was a delay by a week. But that wasn't to the extent of what we've got today. What we have today is a malevolent actor in the Supreme Court who said they want to put pressure on, I'm speculating here, on these Supreme Court justices to change their opinion. We want to intimidate them to change the opinion, so we're going to release it. You basically taken the one institution that Americans, whether they agreed with the rulings or not, said they're at least more objective, more honest. And now you say you can't trust any institution in the United States government anymore. That's where the long-term generational damage is going to happen right here. And can I comment on the
Absolutely.
Alito's opinion just in of itself? When I read the opinion that was leaked, and I'm looking at it, I'm saying all these people are saying, I'm hearing pro-lifers saying, "Well, great, hallelujah, Roe v. Wade's overturned, no more abortion," and you're hearing the baby killers saying, "Whoa, we'll never be able to have another abortion," and then it's going to be transgenders and interracial marriages and all this, all a bunch of lies. The reality is, all they did was they kicked it back to the states.
Exactly.
And that means that hopefully my state, Arizona, is gonna proscribe abortions. But next door, California is going to create an abortion travel tourism industry. That's what they're going to do. And do I think that's right? No, that's not what I would like to see. I'm a pro-life guy all the way. But that's the reality of what's happening here. And the left is taking it, and they don't have any issues to run on. Sarah, you and I know this.
Right.
So that's what this is all about.
Do you think someone may have leaked this just with the intention, and this is my belief too, of November coming up, creating a scandal, hoping that maybe the Democrats will have a shot in the dark with this one, because it is a complete lie. I've read the 98 pages of Alito. And by the way, I think Alito had brilliant arguments in his opinion. That draft opinion was probably one of the best things I've ever read, coming out of SCOTUS. I thought it was brilliant all the way through, and it was moving. It was really moving, and it did kick it back to the states. But do you think someone did this with the intention of trying to change the trajectory, not only of Roe versus Wade, but of the upcoming November midterms?
Absolutely. 100% agree with you. I mean, look at it. I mean, right now, you can go to suburban women who they abandoned Donald Trump because of mean tweets. And they're like, and actually I saw a poll on this morning. They're saying, look, yeah, I'm pro-choice, but so what? What I really care about is gas. I can't afford the gas. I can't afford the food. The inflation is killing us, and it gets back to something Bill Clinton. He was personally had his own set of values, but I mean, in reality, he had political intuition that was absolutely correct when he said back then, "It's the economy, stupid," and it still will be the economy, stupid, because Roe v. Wade. This is, as people actually come to understand what this opinion's going to do and not going to do, they will say, well, it's a tempest in a teapot. Really, what I care about is the fact that I'm paying almost $5 or more per gallon of gas, and I'm paying 3 and 4 times the amount for groceries under Joe Biden than I did under Donald Trump.
We can't even get baby formula. We can't even get baby formula. My daughter was talking about it. You know, it was weeks ago, my daughter's like, Mom, are you watching this? Like, I'm on Facebook and my friends cannot get baby formula. They can't feed, their babies. I mean, if they're giving them formula, they just can't get it. They're out of it at Walmart. They're out of it. We're really facing a crisis in this country. When you can't even get baby formula at the store, you're paying over $5 a gallon, and your groceries, like you say, Congressman, have tripled in some cases, in some places. I mean, this is pretty scary times. I don't know where we see the end to this. This is only year one.
Yeah. And so I'm curious to know where my Republican friends are going to be today, because what's going to exacerbate that is a $40 billion bill that we're going to vote on today, which hasn't been written yet. They wanted to put an additional $20 billion in for more COVID relief, of all things. This spending Lollapalooza that the Democrats have going, the fact that we killed mining, we killed the energy sector in America. We've basically, with some of our sanctions against Russia, have basically said, okay, we're not going to get fertilizer, so we're killing our ag industry. Ukraine supplied so much of the world's wheat. They were a breadbasket for the world. That's destroyed. I mentioned this is Noam Chomsky. You know who Noam Chomsky is. He's this radical communist lefty. Mm-hmm. Teaches part-time at University of Arizona. I had to put that in there because I guess about that quite a bit. But
he should be really proud of himself. He's pretty much part of the reason our nation is so upside down.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he would not take credit. Probably he'd blame somebody else, because that's what the left does. But what he said is there's only one senior statesman in America that is actually trying to resolve the Ukraine-Russian conflict. And that's Donald Trump, because Trump is saying we should move to peace. There will be nothing left in Ukraine for Russia to take over if they take over. There'll be nothing left in Ukraine for Ukrainians to go back to if we don't see a movement to peace.
Right.
And Ukraine is a critical component to feeding the world.
I mean, this is a black swan event in my opinion. We haven't seen the worst of it yet. We're at the very beginnings of something that could potentially be a detrimental all over our planet. And and then I'm watching what's happened, and I hate to be an alarmist like this, but after seeing what happened yesterday, and I'm going to be covering the whole week, the stories here, I'm really worried. I want to get back really quick, because I know we were talking about this beforehand, and I know you have ideas about what can actually happen here. I was down there. I thought it was against the law that you can't protest inside someone's neighborhood in the state of Virginia, that you could be arrested for doing that, for disturbing the peace under per se laws. Are these people ever going to face criminal penalties? Or could they, if they continue to harass these justices? Also federal law, trying to intimidate the justices. But what about the leaker? And if we go back to the SCOTUS ruling, what happens to the leaker? Are they going to really find out who it was? Are they going to face criminal penalties? What laws were broken here? I mean, what can we do?
Well, so with regard to the leaker, I was looking, and I haven't really found laws yet. It'd have to be, in my opinion, we have to see what the contracts of these people say, the non-disclosure. There should be some non-disclosure contracts, in my opinion. That person their career should be jeopardized. They should never be allowed to ethically have a bar license anywhere in the country. I mean, that's just really the way it is. They violated that in such a degree. And also, if January 6th was an insurrection, this was an insurrection. And why was it? Because it was an attempt to change a legal process and an outcome of a legal process. I don't think it was insurrection, but I mean that's how crazy we've gotten, right?
Right. Mayor Lori Lightfoot of Chicago, she is basically saying, we got to fight. We got to take these people down. I mean, there's a lot of people on the left that are calling for violence against the Supreme Court justices.
Well, I mean, you remember Chuck Schumer a year ago said we're gonna remember this. We're gonna remember you when they decided to even take up the Roe v. Wade case.
Correct.
And so I find myself saying, well, okay, Chuck Schumer, what was that? That was a threat. What's her Pocahontas?
Elizabeth Warren.
I couldn't remember. Elizabeth Warren. I mean, Elizabeth Warren's having a meltdown of meltdowns. Klobuchar, I watched a conference she gave. These people have said so many outrageous things in an effort to intimidate justices. I don't know where. I mean, speech is limited. You can't threaten and intimidate.
But I guess they can if no one's holding them accountable, Congressman.
Right.
If we don't have a Department of Justice that does its job, if we don't have people in our states doing the job that they need to do, people with courage like you, if we don't have people that are going to stand up to the left and say, no more, no more. The establishment Republicans are not going to do that. They are not doing that. So I don't know. I mean, look, I thought this was interesting. And I know I'm keeping you way beyond the time you said you were going to be able to have with me. I know you got to get back to work, but I think this is so important. You know, a few weeks ago, Senator Sinema came under criticism, not for refusing to kill the filibuster or a piece of legislation, but because she considers you a friend. And I thought this was awesome because I know you pretty well. And you're probably one, in my opinion, one of the most trusted lawmakers, somebody who truly loves his constituents, fights for our nation, believes in telling the truth no matter what, you know, getting out there and fighting the good fight, right? She said, I love Andy Biggs. She said this back at a fundraiser back in September. And she said, I know some people think he's crazy, which to me is crazy, but that's just because they don't know him. And she just... I love that. No, I love that because you guys are friends. You're all friends. You know what I mean? And I think the American public needs to hear this more and more, that it's okay if you belong to a different political party. Let's get back to where we were before as Americans, where we were debating policy issues that were good for our nation, not trying to destroy each other or our nation, but trying to build it and make it a better place for all of us to live. I don't want to see this anymore. You know, I'm so frustrated. I'm so grateful when I hear, you know, right now, both sides of the aisle defend one another. What do you have to say for that?
Well, I mean, I look back and I remember Tip O'Neill, who was Speaker of the House, very left, you know, old line Democrat, and Ronald Reagan. They used to, you know, Ronald Reagan, if you read one of his biographies, he says, oh, you know, I had Tip over to the White House for dinner. We sat around, we ate on TV trays. Reagan liked to eat on TV trays. They'd eat on TV trays. Tip O'Neill takes his shoes off. He's sitting there, and they have this great conversation. They're laughing and scratching and all that stuff. And then the next day, Tip O'Neill goes out and just beats the crud out of Ronald Reagan again. And Reagan calls him up and says, hey, what's the deal? And he says, well, hey, when I'm working, I'm going to beat the tar out of you, but we can get together after hours and have, you know, a good time. We can go for drinks. I mean, that's really kind of the way it is. That's the way it should be. It's not that way anymore. I mean, you know, after January 6, 2021, people I had been working on who co-sponsored my legislation, and then I, on the other side, and I co-sponsored their legislation after January 6th, these people wouldn't even talk to me. And I'm like, I did the same thing you did 4 years ago. You know, what is going on here? I'm afraid that it's just the chasm between both sides is so great now that it takes a little bit to break through. I mean, I broke through with one of my bills called the Prada bill, which is a Puerto Rican accountability bill for all the bailout money and
Right.
transparency, right? It got passed into law. I was the lead Republican. We had a Democrat on the other side. We were able to do that, but right to try. We crossed the aisle. Kirsten Sinema and I, we were able to bridge the gap on that. But so much of this is so personal. I really don't try not to take any of this stuff personally. I figure people just hate me. That's okay. That's their prerogative to hate me. But you know what?
I don't know why that made me laugh. It's like it's true. Like, what are you gonna do? You can't get people to change their mind, but you want to live in a time where at least people will listen to one another. Where at least we'll find a way, because we all have something to fight for. It's this country, and it's pretty amazing. And it's kind of heartbreaking to watch what's happening. There is one bill. I last time I talked to you, we never got a chance. You said maybe one day you'll get to ask me, and it's about UFOs. And this is important. This is important. Members of the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committees, they received classified progress reports in recent weeks on a series of new data collection efforts that the Pentagon has on unidentified aerial phenomena. And the spy agencies are now required to pursue those investigations much more rigorously. I know that Senator Gillibrand, as well as Senator Marco Rubio and others, are working they're bipartisan in this effort. And why? Because they say that the phenomena, they don't know what it is an urgent national security issue. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, so I don't know if you saw this, that I want to say in a week or two, the House Intelligence Committee is going to they're going to have a subcommittee that has an open to the public hearing on this stuff that's coming out on UFOs. Of course, Adam Schiff is the chair of the Committee on Intelligence, which makes it immediately, in my mind, dubious. Isn't it kind of sad that in the United States Congress today, maybe one of the few things we can get together on is something strange, space phenomena like UFOs?
My God, what has happened to us?
Yeah, I mean, really, it is. I mean, I laugh at it, but it is kind of sad because I think all of us would say, "Oh yeah, let's find out what we'd like to know." And the question is it, what does this mean? I mean, look, this goes back to things like the hollow Earth theory. The old movies where you're shooting the comet that's coming to the Earth, and you get space lasers that shoot. I don't know. I'm very interested to find out what this is. Is there some big warehouse with the Ark of the Covenant sitting in it somewhere in a nondescript crate?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Exactly.
Where?
So, or the magnet guy from Area 51.
Well, I tell you this. What could make us all get along is if we saw a bunch of spaceships coming to this planet ready to target us. I think we would quickly change from being each other's enemies to probably being each other's, best allies. I think that may be a quick change. You don't think so?
Sarah, you're so optimistic. I see that I see that as being in the woods with a bunch of friends, and a big old bear comes out, start chasing you. All of a sudden, everybody just wants to be faster than at least somebody else, at least one other person. And that may happen with your UFOs. I'm just saying, okay, all right. Just so long
Who's the fastest, right? Who's the fastest?
Exactly.
Well, I'm glad we ended this on a high note. Is there anything? Well, it is. It's a high. I mean, we're lucky. You know what? We just got to learn how to survive. That's it. I'm looking at the glasses half full, Congressman. I'm still looking at the glasses half full. I hope that we all find one day our Kirsten Sinema.
Yeah.
We're all looking for that. And is there anything that I haven't asked you, because it's we've talked about so many issues. Anything that you believe we need to be paying attention to, anything that you think as Americans we need to be really focused on in order to, I guess, get back to a place where we feel safe, proud, and proud to be a part of this great nation.
Well, I mean, I'm a big believer that just as in my own life, I have weak points and sins to repent of. this country needs to kind of turn back to God, I think. And if we do so, I mean, it was George Mason who said, God doesn't punish countries in the next world because, he's going to take care of individuals and whatnot. But he will punish countries in this world, in this life, who fail to be a good moral people. And I mean, John Adams is the one who said, that our country and our Constitution and our freedom was given to a moral and religious people. It's not, you can't have freedom in any other way. And so we need to struggle to see how we all fit into that milieu of needing to come back and love our neighbor as ourselves and love God too, and then we'll be better.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's a lesson for all of us, and just taking some time to live in that light. You know what I mean? To be good to one another, to remember that, we're all neighbors and we're all on this planet together, and to respect one another. Gosh, from your mouth to God's ears, Congressman, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Sarah. It's always good to be with you. Always good.